Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Process Podcast.
Mr. Carmichael,
Mr. Haynes.
how are you doing today, my friend?
I am doing fantastic, thank you.
Are you really doing fantastic?
I am actually. It's been a very good day.
Oh, it's been a good day.
We were talking about this earlier when we were doing our buys and tries in the PT room, that it's good to have everybody back in the gym in terms of coaches. Even just seeing all the members starting to trickle back in has been really cool, and everyone asking, oh, how was your holiday, where did you go, etc. But just having like our team training, all the coaches there, which we've not experienced that for like almost 6 weeks, right? Because there's been people leaving. You were even gone to Chiang Mai like the beginning of December, and we're still actually missing Tammy. So we're not
And
Lottie. So we're not a full house, but it was just good to have team training, feeling busy.
Yeah, this is the first time in 3 years for us that we've actually had a lot of our team disappear on holidays, which was a very normal thing back in the day. Kind of Christmas time, maybe Chinese New Year or Easter time, and summertime, you'd have kind of like half the team away at any one point in time. And obviously, with our doors, Hong Kong opening up again, everyone's gone. It's been really weird.
Yeah.
But I totally agree. It's just nice to have everyone back in, people feeling and looking and acting rejuvenated, coming back from a bit of a break. And for many people, it's like their first break in 3 years. I was fortunate enough to get away a few months ago and have had experienced that. And I'd actually like to ask you about your holiday. You went to Phuket in Indonesia. We won't go into the details of what you did, but we've all been talking. I love the question when people get back from holidays. You know, have you had any revelations? Have you had any, like, I don't know, thoughts on life that has changed by you going away and now coming back in? Because I certainly, the 3 times I've been away now, the last few months, I've always come back with a new revelation or a reminder or an epiphany or a change in something. So yeah, have you had any?
There's definitely been a few. I think for me it was the first time leaving Hong Kong since I actually arrived in 2 years. And I didn't realise, I forgot what it was like to travel and be in a different country. Like, you rock up to an airport, you jump on a plane, you land in a country that's completely different culture, different food, different language, different way of thinking, different weather. And I just forgot how exciting that feeling is. Like, it's good to get immersed in that and taste all the different foods and meet the different people. And that was really exciting for me. And it's something that I'd kind of lost touch on because I hadn't traveled in 2 years. We'd just been in this bubble of Hong Kong, which was great. Like, we've been working hard, we've been training hard, which was all good. But I kind of forgot what it was like to be able to jump on that plane and go to somewhere completely new, which was really rewarding.
I always find it, especially traveling around Asia, and I guess people live in Europe, it's the same thing when they travel in Europe, America. But in 2 hours, you step off the plane, you step out the airport, and the smells are completely different. The people look completely different. They're speaking a different language. The climate's different. The taxis look different. And I just
different currency.
You know, that was 3 hours ago. I was having breakfast in my living room, and now I'm in a completely new country where everything is completely different. I always find that no matter how many times I travel, just such an amazing thing.
Well, I actually posted something on my Instagram I had a reflection on, because when we were in Phuket, long story short, we were on a beach and we're watching the planes come in, and I'm quite a bit of a plane geek.
By the way, as we took off, we saw that beach.
It's pretty, and you'd see everybody there taking pictures.
On the fence, kind of like looking in.
It's pretty cool.
We were just picturing you, just like running up and down in your orange shorts.
It's
like,
mental.
Yeah, it's cool.
Like they fly.
It's a nice beach as well.
It is. It's a beautiful beach. So you leave, like, obviously won't go into too much detail. Anyway, the point of the story was that I was thinking that even just like planes and stuff, like you said, you can jump on a plane within 3 hours, but you go like 100 years ago, it used to take 6 months to get from one side to the world to the other. You know, like you going to Asia from Europe by boat, that took 6 months, you know?
Well, I mean, like, even just to send a letter, you know, like to let your family know that you can do something is a 3 month travel minimum one way.
Crazy,
That's nuts. I always think about that. You know, I read quite a lot of historical fiction, and set like hundreds of years ago, and to get British settlers when they first arrived in Hong Kong had to send a dispatch to the Queen to let them know that they're going to be doing something, and they didn't even know if a letter's going to get there, so they send the letter that said this is going to happen, and they just have to do it. Or I'm going to be in this country in 4 months' time. I will see you there.
Meet me there.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
nice.
Okay, so traveling, feeling, the excitement of travel again. That was something you lost touch with. What else?
What else? I think also just like surrendering the outcome almost. I had a few moments where I caught myself like trying to basically control the uncontrollables. Bit of context, you go to Jakarta, like traffic is crazy. So I'm sitting in the back of the car, and this was Christmas Day, and we booked a nice lunch and stuff. And we were sitting in the car. Traffic was absolutely mental. I'm sitting in the back, and I could feel myself starting to get a bit like agitated, a bit frustrated. Like I've started to look at my phone. Okay, right, we've got 10 minutes. Right, shit, we're going to be late. I could start to feel like my blood pressure starting to rise. And I just took didn't take a step back because I was sitting in a car, but I just took a moment. I was like, there's nothing I can actually do here. And it was just really letting go and just being okay with it's okay. There's nothing we can do. We're going to be late. It's fine. Same time we were in Phuket and I was coming to your parents' villa. We were going for a barbecue and we were late again. And I've messaged everyone, and again, I'm starting to get a bit frustrated. And Petra turned around to me, my wife, and she said, Liam, there's literally nothing you can do. You've informed Ed. You've informed their parents. It's fine. All good. Just sit back and relax. You're in the back of an Uber. You're not driving. Just sit back. And it was a really good reminder to just kind of just go with the flow, you know?
Yeah, that's... we were talking about this as we were finishing with buys and tries, which you've already referenced in this conversation. But this concept of letting go and acknowledging what's in your control and what's outside your control. One of those things for me is flying. I talked about it on a podcast ages ago, and one of our listeners, Andy Thompson, used to own one of our affiliates and one of our process program subscribers.
He's on the build now.
Yeah. He messaged me and said, hey, I listened to your episode about flying and how you have a bit of fear of flying, especially like when you hit turbulence and pockets, which we actually talked about on holiday. Yes. And he said, he suffered the same, and he actually went to see a therapist about it. And it was basically all boiled down to the concept of letting go, of knowing that something is not inside your control. And for Andy, that was something he really struggled with, is when something wasn't in his control. I believe I'm getting this right, but it resonated a lot with me because it made me really reflect on why I have resistance to flying. And it's not that I don't want to fly, but as soon as I get in the plane and we hit a bit of turbulence, we hit a pocket and we drop a meter, I just envision death straight away. I think in a minute,
we're going down.
We're going to go down. I'm already envisioning it coming out the speakers. I'm already thinking about my brace position. I'm already thinking, am I going to have time to give my parents a quick call, quick message, just to let everyone know, all my loved ones, that it's like, hey guys, I'm going down, not going to see you again. Love you very much. Thanks for everything you've done. Yeah, I'm actually thinking about all those things, and then the turbulence stops, and I'm like, my heart rate genuinely sometimes I'll look at my watch just to be like, what did my heart rate spike to then? 200. I sometimes feel like, I'll go from 50 beats per minute to 90 in a split second. My palms start sweating, and I'm like, I think if that happens 5 times on a flight, I just think how much stress my body is going through, moving between that sympathetic state and not. That's why tiring is so fatiguing, especially for someone who has any form of anxiety flying. So anyway, this time going on a flight, and actually the last couple of flights I've taken, I've actually been really conscious of that, which is just to let it go. And it doesn't mean I don't still have all those symptoms, but it's just when those symptoms strike, when we have a bit of turbulence, it's reminding myself that it's like, this is totally outside of your control and there is nothing you can do. Just surrender, and what will be. And just saying that and just recognizing my thoughts already puts me at ease.
It just pushes you, just relax immediately. You're like, okay, it's fine. Like whatever's going to happen is going to happen, right?
And the traffic thing you were talking about, I remember listening to a Ben Bergeron podcast ages ago. He was talking about road rage and people who get road rage, and essentially, you're making yourself get worked up and essentially shaving years off your life because of the stress you're creating internally over something you cannot control. You cannot control whether the person in front of you, how fast they're going to go, whether they're going to turn right or left, or if they're doing silly road mistakes. There's nothing you can do is going to influence the situation. And I remember listening to that because at the time I was like, I definitely suffer a bit from road rage. I kind of liked it. I almost wore it as like an identity for me. So I enjoyed getting angry, and I enjoyed swearing at a person when I would drive
sticking
past
the middle finger up when you're driving by,
and maybe even starting a little battle just for a bit of fun, but also there was genuine rage and anger and frustration there. And after hearing that, and this was around, very similar time of kind of going through, I guess, part of my healing journey. And a big part of the whole healing journey was letting go of things that are not inside your control. And that was one of them that I was like, I create so much stress in my life because of traffic, and because of even commuting in general. So whether I'm taking the train, whether I'm walking, whether I'm riding my bike, if people around me, who are totally entitled to walk slow, they're totally entitled to walk in zigzags.
They are not in the wrong.
They're not in the wrong.
Yeah.
Just because I have an agenda,
I
assume that everyone should know my agenda as well. And because they don't know my agenda, I have a reason to get frustrated and angry, which is totally ridiculous. So I think that's something I've really brought into my life over the last few years, which is just letting go.
Just letting go.
Even just the other day, we were talking about this. Like I knew that I had cut it fine. I was going to be getting to training, which I cut fine every day. I arrived pretty much
on the dot.
On 10:15. But there was a day where it was like the lift wasn't working, or I missed a couple of lifts, and then like I just missed the train, and so everything was just kind of going against me. All the traffic lights, the pedestrian crossings were red, and it was just like, well, there's just nothing you can do. Today's maybe a day you're just going to be late, and to be honest, that's totally on you because you cut it fine and you didn't leave. There's no point getting more worked up about it. What will be will be. Like I can't change what the traffic light's going to do in 10 minutes time. I can't dictate when the train's going to arrive. Like. And as soon as you do that, like
life just becomes a little bit
easier. Yeah. And I think I'm very much like you on holiday. Like that is my entire holiday. From the moment I get off the plane, it's just like I let go of everything. I don't want busyness in my schedule at all. I'm totally happy to sit and do nothing for hours. We were saying like if I have one thing on my agenda in a day, that's enough.
That's plenty.
Whereas here, because it's funny, I'm transitioning straight back into this. I actually posted something on New Year's Day as I was sat there.
The being versus doing.
Yes, as I was sat there lying on the grass reading my book like I did every afternoon and drifted into like a 20-minute nap. And I woke up and I was just staring at this palm tree and I'm like, I'm just being here in the moment. And I've been in this moment now for 3 to 4 hours and it's really, really nice. And I think back to 2 weeks prior, in the thick of work before I left, which is just doing. You're just constantly doing things all the time. It's like you're checking boxes, you're ticking that to-do list, you're going from one meeting to another. You've got 12 hours in a day, which disappears, the click of the fingers. And it's just like, there is so little time in my day where I'm just, when I say being present, because I'm actually being present in all those tasks, but I mean actually being and doing nothing.
Being okay with that.
And being okay with that. And so I think the last couple of years I have been making that transition, and really like some people call it having more balance in life, working and playing or working and resting. Some people may find it in meditation and nature and mindfulness and doing all those things. But I think this year more than ever, coming back from my holiday, which was probably one of the most relaxing holidays I've ever had, I really did nothing, spent quality time with my family and loved ones, was that I want to do even more of that. And I guess it's leaning into the resistance of why do I not do it? Why do I always feel the need to be doing all the time? And that really brings me back to work. It's like, why do I always feel the need to have to be busy or to have to be moving things forward or to constantly be striving for more? And so I haven't found answers to all those things yet.
And it's a difficult question to ask because like we are people that want to be moving forward, but it is trying to... It always goes back to almost trying to fill the void. It's like sometimes we're just filling that time because sometimes it is maybe uncomfortable or sometimes you feel guilty for not doing something. It's like I've got nothing in my calendar or maybe a Sunday, or like I'm not doing any work and you kind of be like, oh, maybe other people are doing work. Like, and then that maybe it's like, oh, is there fear there? Is there fear of maybe someone thinking, fear of judgment? Maybe someone thinking that I'm not working as hard as them, for example. But that's just the stories that we create in our own head, right?
Yeah, and I think, the more addicted we get to that, and we do get addicted, right? Like, especially we think about our life in Hong Kong, we're in a fast-paced city. Every time I go to an island like Phuket or Bali, it reminds me just how fast-paced life is here.
It's a complete opposite end of the spectrum,
the moment you get off the plane, you step out the airport, it's like everything is fast. There's horns beeping, doors are shutting, people are shouting, everyone's in a rush. Whereas like in Phuket for 2 weeks, like everyone was
very
walking,
laid back,
was crawling. It was just really nice. But then, I guess going back to the whole the whole being versus doing, and knowing that we're a company and we're a group of individuals who are always striving for more. That's actually our collective value that's brought us together. One of the many collective values that's brought us together. But then it's like finding that fine balance, right? It's like, how much is enough? When is too much too much? When is not enough enough? And I think there is no sweet spot that you continually hit for the rest of your life. And I think, like life just will move in seasons, and depending on what season of life you're in will dictate what that balance is. And so, realistically thinking, it's like, okay, well, if my last 2 weeks of holiday was like really on one end of the spectrum, which was a lot of being and not a lot of doing, I also know that if every day looked like that for a year, I'd probably be sick of being, and I'd probably want to be doing more doing. I've come back into work now, and I've got 5 weeks of a lot of doing. We're about to travel on the road to visit all our affiliates. We're about to run 2 athlete camps on back-to-back weekends, and then we're straight into the CrossFit Open and the quarterfinals and all that. It's going
to be very full on.
Yeah, that's 3 weekends, which I won't, will not be days off. And so I know that this is going to be extreme amount of doing, which, having come from that amount of being and stillness, is actually freaking me out a little bit. Yeah. Because it's like, do I want to be doing this? Like, do I need to be doing this amount of work? And so I guess the perspective shift is, okay, zoom out a little bit. What's coming up after that? Yeah. And I know, okay, well, right now, I'm sure we're going to put something in our calendars, but there isn't too much once that's done. So I need to recognize that now and have the foresight to know that when this is all done, I need to go back to probably give myself a bit more being in my life to balance that out again. And I think it's important I say that and I recognize that now, because you know that when you get into the cycle of doing, you're just constantly wanting to do. Yeah. You forget about the being, right? You forget about the being because you get addicted to the doing, because that's all you've done for the last 4 weeks.
And that's all you know.
Just like you're not traveling for 2 years, you forgot how important it was and how.
Because that becomes your reality, and it's just your bubble that you're in. And I do think I like what you're saying in terms of, like, it's essentially like seasons, it's periods. It's like training. Right, it's like when we look at the
different cycles.
Yeah, so when we look at the calendar, and that's the importance of, again, sitting down and giving yourself a bit of reflective time and looking ahead, like what's coming up, right? Well, for you and for the business, we now know for the next 5 weeks, so you can basically put it up in the calendar. It's basically like an intensification, right? If we put it into training language, it's like, we know that this shit's probably going to be quite hard for the business, but that's all good. We're going to get a lot of good things coming from it. Okay, what's going to happen after that's probably going to look like some sort of deload, and if you can put it in that sort of language, then it kind of looks a bit easier. But just the importance of mapping it out, and you're going to have seasons or periods, whatever you want to call it, in your life, where you are going to be going. You're going to be doing a lot. You're going to be doing a lot of the doing, learning on the road, doing stuff for the business. But then it is times, and it's important to take those times where you do relax a little and you go into a bit more of a being state, right?
Yeah. And these conversations are super important to have. For some people, they don't have people to have these conversations, or they don't think that having these conversations is important. Maybe they have an outlet like journaling where they can write it down. Maybe they don't. But I think the interesting thing is, we were speaking to Izzy. I asked her the same question. We all 3 of us, and I said, what were some of your revelations or light bulb moments from your holiday? And one of hers was realizing that giving herself the downtime on holiday with no agenda, she realized she hadn't given herself that for a really long time when she was here. And because of that, she got into a very negative cycle, negative headspace. And one of the habits she'd stopped doing was journaling. And, classic case is that, she'd forgotten, she'd lost touch with the things that she knew she needs to do to reinstate balance, to allow her to work hard and still love it. She basically got to a point where she didn't know anything else and felt like this is the only way I can do it.
That becomes your norm again, right?
That is a really scary thing. When you're struggling and things are hard and you think that's your only option and you think that's the norm, that's where things can get a little bit overwhelming.
Well, I think that's when it turns into 6 days like that, 6 weeks, 6 months, and then some people will go 6 years on doing the same things without taking a step back and having a different perspective, or just having or just having a friend ask them. And it's important to have these conversations with your friends. Open up, ask questions like, how are you doing, etc. These are all really important markers that we can ask people and essentially try and find out what's going on in their life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was really interesting because, in these reflections of being versus doing, I had fleeting thoughts of maybe I shouldn't be working anymore. Like, genuinely, those thoughts popped into my head. It's like, you've done this thing for 14 years, running this business. You're working so hard. And maybe it's just time for you to retire on an island and do nothing. And that was actually kind of scary. I was like, holy shit. what about everything I've built, everyone I've got there? Like 2 weeks ago, I was absolutely loving it. Now I'm here and I'm questioning whether I want it anymore. And again, like leaning into that resistance. I think I'm in a big phase of my life where it's constantly about identifying resistance in my life or triggers. We're going to talk about that in a second. And figuring out what those triggers are, and then figuring out where did they actually come from. And I wasn't really sure. I wasn't sure if I had just now become addicted to being and this slow way of life on holiday that I didn't know anything else. So I basically said to myself, let's just get back there,
see how it goes.
Put ourselves back in the environment, and let's see in a few days. And a few days in, like I'm like, no, this is where I need to be. This is where I want to be, and I love this place. But I think that's just maybe what's that saying? It's the importance of patience and like sometimes finding that balance between the emotional and the rational brain. Yeah. Because my emotional brain at the time was thinking like, oh, this is really nice.
This is really good. This is very laid back.
Yeah, your health is good. Like your joints feel great. You're training well.
I'm in the sun. I'm in the nature.
The rational thing is saying like, but hang on, you need purpose. You need challenge. You need community. You need your friends. You've got a skill set that you get to do every day that you love doing. And then, I needed to put myself back into it to know. We've both been reading a book. Yeah. By the way, we were supposed to be talking about longevity, but that's going to be another podcast.
I think we should just continue. We're 20 minutes in. Let's go.
We're just talking about holiday reflections.
Yeah, let's go.
We're both reading this book called BEQOMING. Becoming with a Q. Yes. Liam, you sent me this book. Yeah. And you said, I remember your message. You said, just start reading this book, and like every page is speaking to you. Yeah. And I literally had just finished my first book on holiday, and I was like, perfect, I need a new book.
New timing, let's go.
I'm going to read it. And I finished the book in probably a week.
You finished it pretty fast.
Yeah, I was like really hooked to it. And the whole premise of the book is, the tagline on the front is, what is it? What you think you want versus what you...
We're going to butcher this so bad. Let's Google it. Everything that you didn't know you ever wanted. Along those lines.
Nah, that's not it. Oh, actually, you're pretty close.
Yeah, I know I'm close. Yeah.
Everything you didn't know. Everything you didn't know you wanted. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Well done.
So that's basically what I said.
What I really liked about the book was it's written by a couple. Yeah. And they share. There's a lot of storytelling. It's not just another self-help book where it's like, do this, don't do this, think this way, don't think this way.
And that's why I think it's super powerful. We talk about storytelling all the time, and the way that they've done it is pretty cool. It's like you said, it's the memoirs, it's what they went through as a couple. They're putting that on paper, but then they're also giving you some practical takeaways to go and implement to your own life, right?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, you've got a man and a woman. The man is a highly strung banker who's made loads of money, worked really hard his whole life, divorced, 2 kids, doesn't have good relationships with the children anymore, has gone on. Both of them, a strong theme throughout the book is the use of ayahuasca, so psychedelics as a part of their healing journey. He has this one ayahuasca experience, and that opens his eyes up and realizes that maybe what I'm doing actually isn't what I should be doing in my life. And she is, from an abandoned family, essentially, growing up, moving around the world.
She was an actress, right?
Yeah, an actress, realizes that's not her calling, a very spiritual person, and basically like their whole story is how they then came together and created this beautiful relationship. And I saw a lot of myself in both of these people. And it was really cool to hear their journey as to how they unraveled that part of themselves. But essentially the whole idea of the book is like, they talk about trust the triggers to teach. The five T's, which you've talked about before, actually comes from another book, which is...
No, I think it is. So I listened to this book last year. It was right around the same time, but I'd listened to it on an audiobook, but I just wasn't in the right headspace for the book. I kind of listened to it, but it was kind of like passively.
Just weren't in the right place in your life?
Yeah, it was just essentially ticking another box. I was just listening to it, and I was kind of, oh yeah, this sounds good, but it didn't really speak to me then. But there was something in it. I was like, this is actually good stuff, but I'm just not in the right place, like emotionally, mentally, whatever it was. Right. And then I decided that was the audio version. I was like, no, I'm going to get the actual physical book, because there was a lot of things that, like trust the triggers to teach, etc. I was like, there's a lot of gold I can take from there, and I want the physical book. So I ordered the physical book, and I took it on holiday, and I read it. And then it was the first couple of days, that's when I sent it to you. I was like, Ed, this is speaking to me. I think it's going to speak to you as well. And then, yeah.
And I think that's why I went onto that tangent, was the concept of trust the triggers to teach, which I love. And I think, firstly, like, what is a trigger? It's like anything that's creating, like, I guess, a rise in you.
A resistance.
Resistance, I think, is something I think about a lot of
emotion,
times. Yeah, maybe you're feeling something, you're thinking something. And maybe often the resistance to me is that I don't act on that feeling, or I don't say that feeling, or I hold it back. And I think where I'm at in life now is really putting my feelings and thoughts and emotions under a microscope and trying to recognize when I am having triggers, and rather than just ignoring those triggers or just moving on or burying them or distracting myself, actually thinking, why am I actually feeling this way? Why am I thinking this way? Before thinking about being on holiday and feeling like I don't want to work again, I would have beat myself up for even thinking that.
Fuck, who am I?
What are you thinking? Like, you fucking soft insert swear word. Like, don't be ridiculous. But this time I was actually like, that's
where's that coming from?
Why am I thinking that? Or just recognizing when I'm not acting in accordance with the way that I'm feeling. And I guess, what I want to achieve, I want to be able to live a life where there is no resistance. Yeah. And I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where there's no resistance, but I want to
just layers, right?
I want to try to live my life as resistance free as possible. And I know I've made massive moves to do that in the last 5-10 years, where, I would say there's nothing that I don't share. Like, there's nothing that I don't feel comfortable sharing with anyone. And that's really, really nice, because when I think about younger years, like, there was a lot I couldn't share. Yeah. And sometimes I get told by maybe loved ones that I'm sharing too much.
You're oversharing.
There are things that maybe should be private and kept to yourselves or kept within certain circles. And actually in the book BEQOMING, they talk about that. She was talking about writing something in the book. They had a third, it wasn't a polyamorous, but they basically had almost like a third person in a relationship, and the family had asked her to not share that in the book, and they knew they were writing, because that might tarnish the family name, and the kids will read it, and that may have a knock-on effect in future generations to come. And she actually lent into it and said, actually, you know what, this is me being integral. Like, I want to actually, this is me living my truth, and me not doing this feels like I'm going against my truth, so I'm going to put it.
Well, she was going off the whole thing that you can't pick and choose. Yes. You can't pick and you can be really vulnerable and authentic where things are going well, but you also have to do those same things where things are maybe not going so well, or maybe there's something that's really hard to share. It's that whole thing about you can't pick and choose. And what you were talking about is, obviously you're digging deep into, or you're shining a light. They talk about like shadow work and stuff, and I think there's two things there. First thing that I think about is you have to develop like a good amount of self-awareness to actually understand where, if you've got any feelings, and notice those feelings. And I think that's a disconnect with a lot of people, is that they feel stuff, but like you said, they'll just brush it to the side straight away. And where do you get most of your feelings from? Where do you notice a lot of stuff? I notice it in meditation.
And journaling.
And when I'm doing more, when I'm being
more,
rather than just doing, because when I'm just doing and I'm in the mix of it, I'm actually just too busy.
Yeah.
So what happens with me personally, it's when I'm doing my being, whether that be meditation, journaling, and having that downtime, that's when I'll notice my thoughts and my feelings.
Kind of revelations and life-changing moments.
Yeah. And
always when you come back from holiday.
Yeah, and that's when I've been doing a lot of being, right? Yeah. And then I think the second thing is, you've got to have awareness, but then you've got to have a lot of courage to actually dig into those thoughts and feelings, because it is scary. Like you said, like there's stuff that's coming up, thought, feeling, trigger, whatever you want to call it, and you're shining a light on it and you're digging deep. Like, there can be a lot of traumas or whatever is going to come from there, but it might be a lot of good stuff. But again, there could be some nasty things that come up, but you need to be okay with that, and you need to have courage to dig a bit deeper, right?
Yeah, you do have to be very brave and courageous. And I guess knowing that, not even knowing, but knowing that digging is going to give you a lot more freedom and clarity in the long run. So it's kind of knowing that it's worth suffering short term and struggling because of the freedom it's going to give you in the longer term. That's totally worth it. But you know, the interesting thing is, for me, the more and more I dig into the resistance and the triggers, I actually get really excited about it. Like I would say I've actually not come to terms, but understood a lot of my past traumas and a lot of my resistance and a lot of my triggers in my life. New ones are always going to appear as I grow older, as I experience new things, as I meet new people. I'm going to have more and more triggers, but I guess there's less and less now. And you know, when I started this journey, and you know, one of the big impacting, I guess, mantras or values was the whole concept of extreme ownership, which is like, you are responsible for everything that happens in your life. And as soon as I started living by that, you know, I would see that I had an impact on everything, every relationship, every decision, everything that happened in my day. I had a part to play in it. And when I first, you know, embodied that, I was like, holy shit, there is 1,000 things that I need to step up in. Where the hell do I start? And you know, that list of 1,000 then was like 900, then 800, then 700. And I'd say now it's actually a pretty small list. And I'm very content with the person I am. But when I do find something new, I lean into a new trigger or a new bit of resistance, I'm actually like, okay, yeah, this is good. Like I'm excited to dig into this and uncover it.
Well, I think because you've tasted the actual, like, right. you got the gift from it, right? That's the whole thing. It's trust the triggers to teach. You've learnt something from that resistance, that feeling, and that is super rewarding. Like one of the things in the book, they say that the greatest gifts are within the traumas. Like that's where you have to dig deep, because once you understand who you are and all those triggers, feelings, thoughts, etc., you actually understand who you are. Right, and that's the journey of, like they said, it's the whole journey of becoming, right? We're all trying to become who we're destined to be, essentially, right?
Yeah, and I think even in that title, that says it all. It's like we think we should be a certain thing, or we should work a certain job, or we should earn a certain amount of money, or we should be friends with this person, we should dress this way, we should look this way. But again, kind of going back to the letting go, and this is. I've become a lot more spiritual, I think, than even after reading this book, I think my spirituality has gone up another level again. I don't know about you, but, and I think when I say spirituality, that's kind of like trusting in the universe that everything is happening for a reason.
It's got a plan, right?
Yeah, and it's got a plan. And I think there is a fine line between, you know, saying what will be, and doing nothing and just seeing what happens. Like if I sat on my ass and did nothing all day and just said what will be, well, I'll tell you what, I'll be fat. I'll be a fat, unhealthy slob that's probably not going to achieve much in my life. So there is like this fine line, this dance between, you know, like trusting in fate in the universe, but also showing up and
doing the work.
You know, like manifesting the things that you saying out loud, the things you want to achieve, and chasing after them. Yeah, that's a tough one as well, because sometimes you can go too much one way, you can go back down the other way and not achieve the things you want. And
I think we talked about it when we were having lunch the other day outside, and again, it goes back to the whole picking and choosing. People will say when things are happening like really good in life, like, oh, it's just fate, you know, I'm just really lucky, like the universe has got a plan. But then when shit hits the fan and things are not going so well, that's also fate, and that's also the plan, and there's going to be there's lots of triggers in there, and there's lots of lessons to learn. So it's understanding that is the life, right? It's like it's a roller coaster. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs.
And I think what a lot of people do is that when life works out for them, it's fantastic and it's meant to be, and when it doesn't, they become the victim.
Yeah, and then it's a victim mentality.
Exactly, like, oh, why did this happen to me? I'm so unfortunate. And yeah, you're right. You can't pick and choose.
You can't pick and choose.
You need to trust in that things are happening for a reason, and there is a lesson there. There is something. I love the concept of life being your curriculum, and life will, you know, when you're going through a curriculum, life is going to throw you a test, and if you pass that test, then it's going to give you the next test, and that next test may be the next level up, and it's going to be more challenging. But I love the whole concept of like life is curriculum. So like, what is your current curriculum? What are you currently having to learn through life? And knowing that when you get through this, you're going to level up.
You're going to level up.
Yeah, you're going to move to an intermediate level, and then in the intermediate level, you get your next bit of curriculum, and then you level up. And it's like that's kind of an exciting way to look at it.
Yeah, for sure.
Then you're like, okay, well, if I lean into this trigger, I'm going to level up as a human being.
And I think what's really good about that concept as well, that life will continue to give you the same exam until you learn.
Yes.
If you, like, life will throw a spanner in the works, and if you don't learn from it, all good, you'll move on, but it'll show up in another way, shape or form. Maybe not the exact same, but if it's something that you're trying to learn, it will continue to show up until you learn it, then you can move on. And I think that's, again, another important piece to recognize. It's like, yeah, we're all in this school of life, but until we learn the lesson, we're not going to move on.
Yeah.
You know?
And, you know, it's funny because I find maybe this is like the coach in me, and this is why I gravitated towards this profession, but it's like, I want to help everyone. Yeah. And, you know, the first means of doing that was via strength and conditioning. Yeah. So it was like exercise and nutrition and lifestyle, and then it turned into mindset. And now it's kind of like I want to help everyone and everything. Yeah. And I found, you know, being with my parents on holiday, like I could see them going through things, not necessarily together, but just, you know, just like everyone, just like we all do with all of us. Yeah. And, you know, you see someone going through some hardship, or you can see someone with some resistance, and you want to help that person as much as you can. And I think, you know, reflecting on a younger version of myself was, you know, wanting to always impart my thoughts and basically provide unsolicited advice when it wasn't asked for. And that's something that I'm still having to catch myself out on sometimes, is knowing that, you know, where they're at, their curriculum right now, we're just in the different levels of our curriculum. And if I start maybe coaching them and trying to help them, maybe they're just jumping the gun. And I just need to trust that, you know, their life is working out for them, and they're just they're on a different path right now. And all I can do is show up for myself and bring 100% to my life. And maybe that might impact, and maybe it doesn't. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. I know we
didn't articulate that one too well.
No. We're referencing the book as well. Yeah. So there was the passage in the book where basically this couple, the guy was going through some hardships, and the lady, Azria, her name is. Yeah. Azria was wanting to impart her knowledge. She was trying, and that's what normally happens. Yeah, because she could see him hurting. And personally, I went through that with my partner, Petra. Like last year, she was also going through a hardship.
As I did with my partner.
And all I wanted to do, naturally, all you want to do is help. You want to try and impart knowledge. You want to try and give her some tools to go out there and try and navigate this thing.
Because you also realize, especially with people close to you, is that when they are going through that hardship, it has an impact on you.
Yeah, for sure.
And the more you involve yourself in it, the more you start to endure hardship because of it. Sorry, continue.
No, that's good, because that's basically what I was going to say. But I was just trying to impart everything, and all it took for me to understand that we're just in different journeys, essentially. We're all moving towards the same path, but Petra was just in a different part of that path than I was. But I was trying to impart all this knowledge, but it wasn't helping the situation. Like it took Petra to understand to recognize where she was in her own journey and then make adjustments for herself. So what happened for me, actually, I had to take a step back, and that was actually really difficult, being the husband, because I'm sitting there thinking, well, I should be trying to help here.
And you feel like you know the answers.
And I feel like I know the answers. And now that we've talked about it, she's like, yeah, you did have the answers, but I just wasn't in the right place to receive those answers. And like you said, sometimes it is very easy, and you want to jump the gun and you want to jump in, but sometimes it's just not the right place. It's like if that person then asks for help, that's very different, because then they're opening the doors to receiving your guidance or tools, whatever it is. But if the person's not asked, don't force yourself on it, right?
Yeah. What was it?
Pest guest something?
Yeah. A guest without an invitation is a pest.
Yeah, that's it.
So the tough one is, and we've talked about this before in our own conversations, is it's patience, right? At the end of the day, if someone's going through hardship, if it's your partner, if it's your spouse, and they're going through hardship, well, together you're going through hardship. It's knowing that, you know, time will heal, but the question is, how much time are you willing to give? Yeah. And sometimes, you know, people just need a day or a week, and, you know, they find the answers and they're able to bring themselves out of the funk, and that's fantastic. When you talk about a business, you know, this is something that I think about all the time, which is, you know, when my team, my employees are going through hardships, and now that their hardships were starting to impact the way that they hold themselves in the company, the way that they do their job. It's having a ripple effect on everyone else in the organization. And then I guess the question always is like, well, how much patience is enough? Because there's going to be a point in time where if you're just patient and expect that everyone will eventually change, that may, you know, too much time is going to now have a really negative impact on everyone, and then everyone's going to suffer. And I think knowing where that line is, because there is no magic line. There is no magic. There is no magic 1 month rule, 2 month rule that applies to everyone. I guess it's just about having a deep, open relationship with that individual so that you know you can gauge whether they're moving in the right direction or not. And I think in the past as a leader, I've probably been too much on the patient side, where I really believe that everyone can change. And part of that belief comes from the fact that I know how much I changed. And, you know, sometimes I see the amount of change that someone is striving for doesn't seem like much. And I think about myself and I think, well, I went through a lot more change than that in not that much time, so they can do it. But maybe they're just, like you said, they're just on a different journey, and maybe they're not striving for that change. Maybe they don't have the tools to be able to experience that change in the same way that you did. And knowing when enough is enough. And, you know, going back to spouses, it's like, when is enough enough? It's like, you know, sometimes I look at these divorce rates in the world, 50% almost now of most marriages ending in divorce. And I ask myself the question, I'm like, I wonder how patient they were in that relationship. And at what point was it decided that, okay, now it's time for us to part ways? Because when I think back to my previous intimate relationships, I was not very patient at all. You know, the moment a bit of hardship would creep into a relationship,
you were like, that's it.
No, it's not meant to be. Move on to the next person and try find some greener grass.
But again, maybe if you'd have took that in a different perspective and maybe said, right, well, actually, if you'd have said, right, well, the universe or whatever's got a plan for me, trusting it, this is a trigger, this is maybe this is an opportunity for me to learn, but you just weren't in that time and space right then to look at life that way.
But even at the same time, it could be like, well, maybe the learning is that I'm in the wrong relationship. It's like
it's just no right or wrong.
And I think that's like the beautiful and the frustrating part of life, and like being a human being and having the brains that we have. It's like we're constantly trying to work out life, but we're never going to work it out. We're never going to work it out. We're never going to work out, and that's just what I love about these, like, you know, books and conversations and asking questions and listening. Is there's just so much to learn everywhere, and the more tools you can have, the more concepts you can expose yourself to, the more you can apply those tools to the situation you're in and be like,
Also, when we talk about, like, obviously for the businesses, then it's even more challenging because, like you said, like, there's money on the line, there's rent to pay, and there's salaries to pay, and there's a lot of people counting on me to make this business successful. And that must be a very difficult situation for you to be in, because it's like, oh yeah, we're doing all these good things, but maybe at the end of the month when you look at the bottom line, it's like, actually, we're doing all these good things, but the bottom line's not doing so well. So then you're kind of in like that crossroads where it's like, are we doing the right things? And then I mean, just from me looking into or having a bit of empathy and putting myself in your shoes, it must be really challenging.
Yeah, so I think another concept in the book they talked about was this concept of like when something is a full fuck yes. Which is basically like when you just got this feeling in your gut, this is 100% the thing that I should be doing. And it can be with anything in life. It can be a spouse, it can be activity, it can be your job.
It can be a coffee.
It can be coffee, it can be anything. And even that is a hard concept, because the more you lean in and really think about whether something is a full fuck yes, you can always find, the deeper you look, you'll find reasons to not believe it's a full fuck yes. You know what I mean? Because to fully investigate whether something is, you have to weigh up the pros and the cons. You've got to look at the good and the bad. And the more you start highlighting the bad, the more I think it pulls you out of whether you think it's actually like.
Well, then you see the negative, right? That's what your brain sees.
Which I think is important as well. You've got to see both. And I think also acknowledging human beings, like we are kind of a little bit more wired to see the negatives. Like as hunter-gatherers, like we need to know about the berry that kills us versus the one that tastes really good and make sure we avoid that thing. So yeah, you know, I think when I think about a lot of decisions, especially, you know, most recently we made some changes to the way that we structured the payment for our coaches. And I knew it was going to be hard. I knew it was a lot of change. It was a massive change. There's going to be lots of work having to go into the relationships of people here, communication, but also it was going to take time for the changes to to see the fruits of the labor, right? Knew it was going to take 3-4 months before we actually started seeing improvements in the bottom line. And there was definitely times where, we get to month 3, month 4, and we're still not seeing that uptick in revenue and growth. But the whole time I had this feeling inside, there was this full fuck yes, that it was like, this is the right thing to do. I know it is. And it's just like, I just know because I can see things like the smiles on the faces of the people, of you guys. Like I can see people are happy. I can see people who are enjoying it. And I think if you guys were all sad and upset and hating life, then I probably would have started to question things.
Something's wrong,
but there was enough things moving in the right direction that made me think this is going to be right. Because a big part of that whole move was trusting in people more and less focused on the numbers, which is kind of how I've always been, but even more so leaning into like, these are the people that's going to earn you the revenue. So if I can give them the best life possible, then the revenue will come at some point. Just don't know when it's going to be. Yeah,
that's the whole thing about trusting in the universe and trusting in life, whatever it's going to be. It's like maybe right now is just not the time where we're going to be making millions of dollars. Maybe that comes in 6 months, maybe it comes in 6 years, but it's not about the money. It's about do you have purpose, and are you working hard, feeling fulfilled, etc. Because if you're doing all those things, everything else naturally, in my opinion, will come, and it will come in abundance, right? Essentially.
And we don't have, and because we know that, because we know that as a company, that's not where we're at right now, and that's not the focus. But if we hired a bunch of people who all they wanted was to make as much money as possible, well, then they're not in the right place at the right time, and they wouldn't be the right people for this organization. And so knowing that we have a group of people here who want that for themselves at some point, I think we all deep down want financial security and want to have this lifestyle I'm sure we all envision for ourselves. But just know that right now we're all having to put in the work to achieve that. And I always say it to you guys, I'm like, one day I want to pay you guys so much money that you don't know what to do with it. And I know we will arrive at that point one day.
We'll get there for sure.
Nice, buddy.
That's been good. We were supposed to talk about longevity.
We're going to say that for next
time.
Week.
Yeah, that was good.
But no, Liam, thank you for sharing all your reflections.
That was good.
And also thanks for introducing me to that book. Yeah. That's going to be a book I'm going to recommend to a lot of people. I think just for our listeners who are interested in perhaps reading that book, it's called BEQOMING, BEQOMING. I mean, you're not going to find another book called BEQOMING, so whack that into Google, search for it. You read the actual physical copy. I read the Kindle. Great book. And I think I've read pretty much every help book under the sun. Yeah. Self-help book, and this was just the blend of the storytelling and the different concepts. And I think this is one more thing about like the importance of surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded. Is that we kind of, the connection deepens through these kind of conversations because we're like-minded on this thing. Is that you sharing your story is actually almost becomes therapy for me and helps me upgrade myself. Yeah. So we're constantly upgrading each other by talking about similar concepts in our own languages. That was another part from the book that made me, really realize why we gravitate towards like-minded individuals. And
I think just going off that, that's the importance of having your tribe and having your community, because when you're going through your hardships, you share your hardships. That's how we all grow and evolve. And when you're going through your really good stuff, you share that as well. And that's how we all upgrade and evolve and become better people. So I think that was just a bit of a side note, but it's important to have those really good people around you that think similarly and can help, essentially.
Nice. Liam, thanks for your time.
Pleasure. Cheers.
Until next time.
Let's go.